Hey everyone! I noticed that a lot of you are enjoying my content, but haven't subscribed yet. Subscribing doesn't cost a penny. It is free. If you like what you see and want to support me, just hit the subscribe button. It means the world to me and helps me keep creating content you love. Thank you for being here.
The night was quiet in the small compound where Emma and his wife Cynthia lived. But behind the silence, tension brewed. Their neighbor, Joseph, had been in a heated argument with Cynthia earlier that evening. Words had been exchanged, and the situation quickly spiraled out of control. Emma, a calm man by nature, tried to keep the peace, stepping in to separate the fight. Cynthia shouted angrily, her voice sharp as knives, while Joseph held on to Emma's shirt, refusing to let go. In the struggle, Cynthia, without thinking, swung her hand and hit a wooden stool nearby. The stool slipped, struck Emma's head, and in one painful instant, he fell to the ground. Everyone froze. Cynthia screamed, thinking she had killed her own husband. But Emma only lay unconscious, bleeding slightly. Neighbors rushed out, panic filling the compound. Someone called the police. When the police arrived, they asked who had struck Emma. To save his pregnant wife from blame, Emma spoke through weak breaths, saying Joseph had done it. The officers hesitated, but Emma's words sounded firm. To protect Cynthia, Emma let the handcuffs close around his wrists. He knew what he was doing, but he had no idea how much his life was about to change.
The next morning, the case moved fast. Emma was taken to the police station, and from there to court. Cynthia, heavily pregnant, tried to explain what had happened, but Emma insisted she keep quiet. He wanted no one to know she had been the one who swung the stool by mistake. He kept repeating that Joseph was the one who hit him. And because there were no clear witnesses, the court believed Emma's story had quacks. The judge looked down at Emma with stern eyes. He was accused of lying, of trying to cover up the truth. Joseph denied every word, and the argument in court grew heated. Cynthia cried from the back seat, her voice trembling, but Emma stood still. He felt the weight of sacrifice pressing on his shoulders. He knew that if he admitted Cynthia was guilty, she could go to prison and their unborn child would suffer. After days of hearings, the decision was made. Emma was sentenced to prison. Cynthia broke down, clutching her belly as tears streamed down her cheeks. Emma turned only once to look at her, his face calm, but his heart breaking. In silence, he walked away in chains, leaving behind his wife and unborn child.
Cynthia's days became long and heavy without Emma. The house felt empty, and the walls seemed to echo with her loneliness. Her belly grew larger each week, and though neighbors whispered about her husband in prison, she tried to ignore them. At night, she would sit outside, staring at the stars, thinking of Emma's face the last time she saw him. Months passed quickly, and one morning her labor pains began. Alone and frightened, she was rushed to the hospital by a kind neighbor, Lillian. After hours of struggle and tears, Cynthia gave birth to a baby girl. She named her Jessica, a name Emma had once mentioned he loved. Cynthia held Jessica close, feeling both joy and sorrow. The baby's cries filled the room, yet Emma's absence made her heart ache. She wished he was there to see their daughter's tiny fingers and soft face. A week later, Cynthia gathered her strength and went to visit Emma in prison. She carried Jessica wrapped in a soft cloth. When Emma saw his baby for the first time, tears rolled down his cheeks. He pressed his hands to the glass wall between them, whispering her name, Jessica. His sacrifice now had a face, a reason, and a weight heavier than chains.
At first, Cynthia visited Emma every month. She would carry little Jessica, wrapped warmly, to the prison gates. Emma would sit behind the thick glass, his face lighting up when he saw them. He would ask about Jessica's health, her first smile, her tiny laugh. Cynthia would nod and answer, but her eyes often looked tired. Each time, leaving him behind grew harder. As the years passed, the visits became fewer. Life outside the prison was demanding. Cynthia struggled with bills, food, and raising a child alone. Some neighbors helped when they could, but most simply gossiped. Lillian, the kind neighbor, often stayed by Cynthia's side, encouraging her to keep strong. One day, Cynthia met Dave, a man who lived nearby. He offered to help carry her heavy market bags, sometimes bringing food for Jessica. Slowly, his presence became familiar. He was gentle with Jessica, treating her like his own daughter. Cynthia began to notice how stable life felt with him around, how he filled the space Emma had left behind. When Cynthia went to visit Emma again after many months, she felt uneasy. Emma's face still brightened with love, but in her heart, a distance had begun to grow. She wondered how long she could keep walking this path of waiting.
Time kept moving, and Jessica grew older, her laughter filling the compound. Dave was always there, helping with school fees, buying food, and standing by Cynthia when the nights grew heavy. He never asked for anything in return, yet his kindness slowly warmed her heart. Cynthia found herself smiling again, something she had not done in years. When Jessica called Dave Papa by mistake one afternoon, Cynthia froze, but Dave only smiled and gently corrected her. Still, the slip of the child's tongue planted a seed that grew stronger with time. Meanwhile, Emma's days in prison dragged on. He dreamed of Cynthia, of Jessica, of the life he had sacrificed everything to protect. He believed they were waiting for him, holding on to the promise of family. Each letter he wrote to Cynthia carried words of hope, but many went unanswered. Cynthia started visiting less often until she stopped entirely. Guilt weighed on her, but the comfort she found in Dave's arms gave her the strength to keep moving. She told herself Emma would understand one day, that he would forgive her for choosing survival. In her heart, though, she knew Emma's release would come with truths too heavy to hide.
10 years passed, and the world had changed for everyone. Jessica was now a bright young girl who loved reading and laughing with Dave. She had grown to see him as her father, never knowing the full truth about Emma. Cynthia built a new life around stability, though sometimes, in the quiet of the night, memories of Emma stirred in her heart. Inside prison, Emma's hair had turned gray at the edges, but his spirit clung to hope. News reached him that he might be pardoned, and for the first time in years, his dreams felt within reach. He imagined walking back into his home, hugging Cynthia and Jessica, and rebuilding what had been broken. The day of freedom finally came. Emma walked out of the gates with trembling hands, breathing fresh air as a free man. His heart pounded with excitement as he carried a small bag of belongings and the weight of his sacrifice. When he arrived at the compound, children stared at him curiously. He knocked at his own door, expecting joy, but what he found instead was silence and strangeness. Cynthia opened the door, standing beside Dave. Jessica peeked from behind them, her eyes wide. Emma's smile faded as reality struck. His place had been taken.
Emma's heart sank as he stood at the doorway. Cynthia looked at him with eyes that carried both sorrow and distance. Dave rested a protective hand on her shoulder, and Jessica clung to her mother's dress, confused by the stranger before her. Emma tried to speak, his voice trembling as he said he had come back for his family. He reminded Cynthia of his sacrifice, of the years he had endured behind bars so she and Jessica could live free. But Cynthia's eyes filled with tears and she shook her head.
She explained softly that too much time had passed, that she had found love again with Dave, and that Jessica now saw him as a father. Emma pleaded, his hands shaking, begging her to remember the promises they once shared. He told her he never stopped loving her, never stopped dreaming of their reunion. Cynthia's voice broke as she admitted she still respected him, but her heart no longer belonged to him. Emma felt the world collapse around him. The sacrifice that once gave him purpose now seemed like a cruel punishment. He looked at Jessica, his daughter, but she turned shyly back toward Dave. For Emma, it felt as though 10 years had stolen everything he once lived for.
The evening was heavy with silence as Emma sat across from Cynthia and Dave. He could not stop staring at Jessica, his daughter, who had no memory of the man who once dreamed of holding her through every stage of her life. Emma's chest tightened, but he tried to keep his voice calm. He asked Cynthia one last time to give their family another chance. Cynthia's eyes glistened with tears. She explained that Dave had been there through storms and hunger, raising Jessica when she had no strength left. Her voice trembled as she said she no longer loved Emma the way she once did. To ease his pain, she pulled out a check for $10 million, pushing it gently toward him. She said it was not to buy him off, but to help him start again. Emma stared at the paper, his pride fighting against his pain. After a long silence, he took it. He knew money could never replace what he lost, but it was the only closure she offered. Rising to his feet, he looked at Cynthia one last time, then at Jessica, whispering a soft blessing for her future. He walked away slowly, the night air cold against his face. Behind him, laughter from the home he once dreamed of filled the compound. Ahead of him lay an empty road where love had cost him everything.